Welcome, dear listener. Let yourself settle into stillness. Gently close your eyes. Take a soft breath in, and slowly release it. Feel the calm begin to drift over you like a warm blanket. The world can wait now. This moment is only yours. Let your shoulders drop, your hands become heavy, and the air around you turn quiet and kind. There's no rush, no demands, just peace. Let the gentle breeze of your breath lull you deeper into rest. You might imagine soft candlelight flickering nearby, the rustle of leaves outside an old window, a cozy wooden floor beneath your feet, and the gentle creak of an old rocking chair as it sways slowly in the night.
Ow.
Dear dreamer, our story tonight begins with the mystery of a candle that never burned out, a secret that lingered through the quiet corridors of time. Settle in and let me take you there. Our story begins in the year 1327. In the small stone village of Glimmerwick, hidden deep within the English countryside, the roofs were thatched with straw. The air was always slightly misty, and the night so. The nights were long and filled with secrets. There, in a crooked old cottage on the edge of the village, lived a woman named Anselma. Some called her a healer, others whispered the word, which behind her back, but all agreed on one thing. Her home always had one single candle burning in the front window. It didn't matter if it rained, or the wind howled through the trees, or if winter blanketed the hills with snow. That candle never went out, not once. In all the years anyone could remember, children dared each other to sneak up to the window, to see how it stayed lit, but no one ever got close enough. Because the moment they reached the little crooked gate, they'd hear whisper soft floating voices carried by the wind. Voices they couldn't quite understand, but always felt in their bones, and so the candle remained. Burning quietly, aglow against the endless dark, some villagers believed. It kept evil spirits away. Others thought it guided lost souls back to their homes. But the truth, the real truth behind the candle, was far stranger and far older. Anselma herself was not young. Her hair was the color of ash, her hands lined like the bark of old trees. And yet she moved with quiet grace, always humming softly. Her voice like the wind through autumn leaves, she rarely spoke to others, only appearing at dawn to fetch water from the well, and at dusk to gather herbs from the wild hedgerows. Those who crossed her path would often find themselves lost in thought, as if her presence gently slowed time. One day, a curious boy named Ellis decided he had to know. He had heard the stories since he could walk, now nearly 13 and full of questions. He made up his mind to see the candle for himself. He waited until twilight. When the shadows grew long and the mist began to rise from the earth, slipping from his home, he crept quietly through the village, past the sleeping sheep and silent cottages, until the crooked gate of Anselma's home loomed before him. There it was, the candle burning just as always, its flame steady, unwavering, its glow soft and golden. Ellis reached out to unlatch the gate, but before his fingers could touch the rusted metal, he heard it, a whisper, gentle and low. His name, not shouted, not harsh, but spoken with familiarity, like a lullaby. Ellis, it said. "Why are you here?" He turned quickly, expecting to see someone, but the lane was empty. Only fog curling through the grass like fingers. He looked back at the candle. It flickered slightly, just for a moment, as if it too had spoken then. The front door of the cottage opened slowly, without a sound, and Selma stood there, wrapped in a dark shawl, her eyes deep and unreadable. "You seek the flame," she said softly. "Come then. If your heart is steady," and Ellis, though his feet felt like stone, found himself walking toward the door, drawn by the candle's light, and the promise of something ancient, something forgotten. The inside of the cottage was warm and dim, filled with the smell of herbs, beeswax, and old parchment. The candle sat on a wooden table at the center of the room, still burning, its wax untouched, its wick clean. "It never burns down," Ellis whispered, and Selma nodded. "It hasn't, for over 300 years, she said. "How?" he asked, but Anselma only smiled, and with a gesture, invited him to sit. "You'll need to listen closely," she said. "This story begins long before I was born, before even this village had a name. She poured a warm drink into a wooden cup, the steam rising in soft tendrils that curled like dreams. Ellis sipped it without question, and as he did, the warmth of the drink seemed to quiet every racing thought. His heartbeat slowed, his eyelids grew heavier. "Let the candle tell you," Anselma whispered, and just like that, the room dimmed, the walls faded, and Ellis was no longer in the cottage. He was somewhere else. Somewhere deeper, darker, older, where the story truly began. The moment Ellis blinked, the world had changed. The walls of the cottage were gone, the warmth of the hearth replaced by a strange hush. As if the air itself were listening, he stood in a clearing surrounded by tall trees, their trunks wide and silent, their leaves whispering secrets in a language older than any he knew. The moon above was full, its glow soft and silver. And in the center of the clearing was a stone altar. Cracked and covered in ivy upon it, a single candle burned, just like the one in Anselma's home. Same height, same golden flame, and as Ellis stepped closer, the flame flickered once and began to speak, not with words, but with images, with feelings, with memories not his own. He saw a time of great darkness, a time when sickness swept across the land, when even the bravest were afraid to sleep, lest their dreams betray them, or the night claim them. A woman stood at the edge of the forest. Her hands raised, her voice strong, she called to the sky, to the earth, to the unseen. She begged for light, for protection, for something that would not falter. And from the silence the candle was given. Not crafted, but conjured, born from breath and belief. It was a promise, a ward against fear. That woman's name was Moira. She lived in a time before kings and castles, when the world was wild and untamed. She placed the candle at the heart of her home, and it never dimmed, not even when the fever came, not when her neighbors turned on her, not when storms flattened the forest. The candle remained, and so they came to her. One by one, the sick, the scared, the hopeless, they slept beneath its light, and woke without fear. For a time, peace returned. But as always, fear is never far. And those who did not understand declared the candle unnatural. They called it cursed, demanded it be extinguished. But try as they might, no water quenched it, no wind silenced it, no hand could snuff it out. And so they turned on Moira, accused her of witchcraft, banished her from the land she had healed. She wandered, carrying only the candle, until she found a place where no one knew her name. She built a small home from stone and mud, planted herbs in the soil, and kept the candle burning. Always that home, Ellis realized, was Anselma's cottage. He gasped. The vision pulled him deeper, into a memory buried even further in time. Now Ellis stood in a chamber of smooth black rock, beneath the earth, where no wind reached and no roots dared grow. There were candles everywhere, hundreds, each burning, each silent, each older than memory. At the center of the room stood a man, tall and thin, wrapped in robes the color of coal. He held no flame, yet was surrounded by light. He turned to Ellis, not surprised, as if he had been waiting centuries. "You've seen the first keeper," the man said. "Now you will understand the burden." Ellis wanted to speak, but the words dissolved before they reached his lips. The man stepped closer, and Ellis saw that his eyes held stars, tiny points of light, that moved like galaxies behind his gaze. "This flame," the man said, "was never meant to burn alone." And as he spoke, 1,000 whispering voices echoed in the chamber, stories of healers, wanderers, dreamers. Each one who had kept the candle alive, the man reached out and touched Ellis's forehead with a finger of light, and Ellis knew everything, every name, every dream, every night the candle had burned. Not just for protection, but to remember, to honor those who refused to let the darkness win. Then, as quickly as it began, the visions faded, the stars dimmed, and Ellis awoke, still sitting at Anselma's table, the candle flickering gently beside them. His breath was steady, his mind quiet. But his heart was full. He looked at Anselma, who watched him with eyes that held the same ancient light. "You are the next keeper," she said softly. "The candle has chosen you." Ellis opened his mouth to protest, to say he was just a boy, but she only smiled and placed the candle in his hands. It was warm, but not hot, and as he held it, he felt every whisper, every memory, and a quiet peace he had never known. Outside, the village lay silent, the mist curling through the streets like slow rivers, but in one window a soft golden light now burned. The same candle, now in Ellis's hands, and so it would remain, never burning down, never fading. A quiet promise kept, one flame, one keeper, forever. The night that followed was unlike any Ellis had ever known, though the world outside was cool and dark. His dreams were bright and full of warmth. He did not dream of dragons or adventures or climbing trees. Instead, he dreamt of stillness, of candlelight reflected in water, of books that whispered as their pages turned. When morning came, the village stirred as it always had. Roosters crowed in distant corners. The baker lit his fire, and dew covered every blade of grass like tiny pearls. But there was something different. A subtle hush in the air, as if the village itself could sense the shift. Ellis stepped outside on Selma's cottage, still holding the candle, still feeling the weight of what he had seen. He walked quietly through the mist, the candle glowing steady in his hands. Not a single breeze disturbed it, not even when he passed the old oak tree at the center of the square. Villagers peered from behind curtains, eyes wide with curiosity. They remembered the stories. They had all heard them whispered before bed, about the boy who would one day carry the flame. Ellis didn't speak. He didn't need to. Something about the candle spoke for him. In its silence, there was understanding. He made his way back to his small home, where his mother stood at the door, confused and concerned. Her eyes found the candle first, then his face, and slowly she stepped aside, letting him enter. No words were exchanged, only the quiet knowledge that something sacred had begun. That night, Ellis placed the candle in their window. Just as Aunt Selma had for all those years, its golden glow spilled out onto the lane, gentle and still, like a heartbeat in the dark. And as it burned, Ellis sat beside it, wrapped in a wool blanket. Eyes half closed, he listened, and slowly the candle began to whisper again. It spoke of a girl in a far northern village. Centuries ago, she had been no older than Ellis. But clever and kind, she kept a book hidden beneath her pillow, full of drawings of stars. She had dreams of a light that never ended. When illness struck her village, her mother fell sick, and so did her brother. Each day she sat by their beds, reading softly, lighting candles made from sheep's fat and honey one night. As the wind howled and the sickness worsened, she prayed not with words, but with her heart, and in the silence. A new flame appeared, one she had not lit, golden and slow, floating above her mother's chest. When morning came, the sickness was gone. Not just from her family, but the entire village. The villagers called it a miracle. But she knew it was the light, the same light now flickering beside Ellis, a thread that had never broken. Only passed, keeper to keeper. As Ellis listened, he felt himself becoming part of that thread. His mind no longer rushed with thoughts, but flowed gently, like a river beneath moonlight. He sat there until the candle dimmed, just slightly, as if nodding to him, and then flared back to life. Stronger than before, it was not just a flame. It was memory. It was protection. It was every dream that ever needed guarding. Ellis knew he had to learn more, not just from the flame, but from Anselma and from the world. So at dawn, he returned to her cottage. The candle still in hand, as he knocked, the door opened without a sound. Anselma was already waiting, as if she had never left the spot, as if time around her did not move. "You heard the girl," she said softly. Ellis nodded. "And the others?" "Not yet," he whispered. "But I will." "Good," Anselma said. "You'll need them all." She motioned for him to sit, and for the next few hours she told him of other keepers, those who carried the candle across frozen oceans, across deserts where even shadows dared not stay, through plagues and wars, through centuries of forgetting, each keeper believing they were the last. Each one wrong, Anselma unrolled a map, old and yellowed, covered in tiny flames drawn in red ink. "These are the places where it burned," she whispered, "and where it will burn again." Ellis touched the map gently. The edges curled like the petals of a dying flower. Yet somehow it felt alive. Every mark, a memory, a soul, a spark that had waited for him. Outside, the day faded, the sky turning lavender, then indigo, then black. But in the window of the cottage, 2 candles now burned. Side by side, the old and the new, the teacher and the student, the past and the future, burning in perfect silence. And so the night continued, not with fear, but with light, soft and golden, the kind that never burns out. The days passed gently, and the candle continued to burn, steady and golden. Like a sleeping heartbeat glowing in the dark, Ellis woke with the sun, moved slowly through his mornings, listening always, because the candle, though silent to others, spoke to him in soft waves. It no longer gave him only memories, but feelings. The warmth of a child's laughter from a long-lost century. The ache of a lonely keeper who walked cold hills alone. The pride of a woman who lit the candle every evening for her dying town. And through these emotions, Ellis began to understand. This flame was never meant for spectacle, never meant to shine in palaces or temples. Its power came from its purpose, to quietly remind the world that darkness was never final, one misty evening. Anselma met Ellis at the edge of the forest. She held a walking stick carved with patterns of stars and vines. And without a word, she led him down a path not shown on any map. The trees grew close, their trunks thick and twisted. The leaves above were heavy and still. Even the birds did not sing here. Yet the candle in Ellis's hand burned on, unafraid, unchanged, as if it had been here before many times. They reached a clearing where the ground was soft and mossy. A stone well stood in the center, covered in ivy and dust. It leaned slightly, as if tired from holding too many secrets. This is where the first keeper made her promise, and Selma whispered. Moira stood here alone when she first asked the world to let the light remain. Ellis stepped forward. He could feel something in the air, thicker than mist, older than stone. He knelt beside the well, looked into its depth, saw no reflection, only dark stillness. But as the candle's glow reached over the edge, something shimmered, not water, not stone, but memory. In a blink he saw Moira again, but this time she was younger. Standing barefoot in the grass, tears in her eyes, her hands cupped around a tiny flickering flame. She spoke no words, but Ellis understood her completely. Had lost everything, her family, her home, her name, yet still she protected the light. And in that moment, Ellis realized something. The candle did not burn because of magic. It burned because someone always chose to protect it, to believe in its meaning, even when the world had forgotten it. And Selma placed her hand on Ellis's shoulder. You are the first in a very long time to see this, she said, and soon I will go. As all keepers must, but the flame will stay with. You, as it once stayed with me. Ellis turned to her, his eyes wide. Where will you go? He asked gently. Anselma smiled, a soft, faraway smile. I will become part of the flame. And you will carry me too. That night, they walked back through the forest, the path behind them fading like mist. But Ellis felt no fear, only calm, only peace. In the days that followed, Anselma spoke less. She rested more. But every evening, she and Ellis would sit beside the candle in silence, letting the flame tell its stories. And on the 7th night, Anselma did not rise. She lay in her bed, eyes closed, a faint smile on her lips. The candle glowing gently beside her, Ellis sat. At her side, he did not cry, because he knew she had not left. She had only changed. He held the candle close and whispered, "Thank you." The flame bowed once, then returned to stillness, and in that moment, Ellis knew the path ahead, not loud or grand, but quiet, patient, like the light itself. From that night on, a new keeper watched over Glimmerwick, a boy with calm eyes and steady hands, who placed a candle in his window each night for travelers, for dreamers, for the forgotten, and for those who still believed in light. And the candle burned, as it always had, as it always would, never fading, never failing, only glowing, one keeper at a time. One night at a time, forever. Years passed, like autumn leaves drifting to the ground, and the village of Glimmerwick changed in slow, quiet ways. New cottages were built. New names were whispered across doorways, and yet, in the old house at the edge of the forest, the candle still burned. Ellis was no longer a boy. He had grown tall. His hands now shaped like his father's, but his eyes remained calm. As if he always carried something unseen inside them, every evening, without fail, he would light the candle, though it never truly needed lighting. It was a ceremony now, a rhythm, a gentle conversation between keeper and flame. The villagers came to accept it. Some nodded respectfully as they passed. Some left bundles of herbs or folded notes near his gate, seeking protection, dreams, or simply a moment of peace. And Ellis never turned anyone away. He welcomed them with soft words and tea, letting them sit by the candle, even if only for a few heartbeats. But one day, a letter arrived, carried not by hand, but by a bird with feathers as dark as the night sky. It perched at Ellis's windowsill, its eyes bright with purpose, and tied to its leg was a scroll sealed in deep red wax. Ellis untied the scroll, and as he broke the seal, the candle flickered slightly, as if recognizing the message. The letter was simple, just one sentence. It is time for the pilgrimage. Ellis had never heard of such a thing, yet he understood. As if the candle had placed the knowledge gently into his heart. There were other places, other keepers, other flames that still burned or waited to be relit. He packed lightly, just a warm cloak, some bread, a flask of water, and the candle wrapped gently in linen. Still glowing softly as if content to travel again, he left before dawn, the village still asleep. The sky blushing with early pink light. No one stopped him. No goodbyes. Only the soft hush of the earth as it prepared for day. The path led him through the woods, where birds sang in distant harmonies, and branches reached like arms overhead. He moved quietly, not in haste, but with purpose, like a river flowing exactly where it must go. At midday, he stopped beneath an old stone archway half buried by vines and moss. There he met a woman named Eloan. She was older than him, her hair streaked with silver, her eyes kind but watchful. "You carry the flame," she said. "Without question, I've been waiting for you." Ellis nodded. He sat beside her without words, and together they unwrapped the candle. Letting it breathe the forest air, Eloan lit her own candle beside his. And for a moment, the forest changed. Every leaf seemed to shimmer, every shadow softened. "This is the joining," she whispered, "a moment where two flames speak, and remember they were never alone." That night they shared stories, not with words, but with light. The two candles burned beside each other, their flickers dancing in perfect rhythm, and through them Ellis saw images. He saw Eloan as a child, carrying her own candle into a ruined village, planting it in a crumbling chapel. And watching as sick children smiled in their sleep, he saw another keeper before her, a blind man who followed only the sound of wind and the warmth of fire, lighting his candle in silent caves where lost miners dreamed of sunlight. And further still, he saw a keeper on a distant sea, a woman who kept her candle dry through storm. After storm, so sailors might find the shore again, Ellis listened and felt each story settled gently within him, like pebbles dropped into still water, creating ripples that would never end. When morning came, Eloan placed her hand over his. "You are meant to go farther than I ever did," she said, "and the candle will show you the way." They parted at the edge of the river, her candle fading from view behind him, but he felt her light still, in the rhythm of his steps. In the way the wind seemed to guide him forward, he did not know where the path led, only that he was not walking alone. The candle burned, and with it, so did every keeper who ever was. Together they moved quietly toward the next place, the next memory, the next flame waiting to wake. Ellis walked for many days, through valleys where the fog never lifted, across hills that whispered old songs only the wind remembered. Each night he unwrapped the candle, and it always greeted the world with a warm, golden glow. He kept no map, only followed the quiet pull in his chest, the sense that something waited, somewhere just beyond the next bend in the road. Sometimes he passed travelers who nodded with quiet recognition. Some paused to sit with him beside the flame, and they would speak of dreams of the strange comfort. They felt in its presence, though none of them could explain why. It was enough to sit, to breathe. To remember that light could still be found in the dark. One evening, after a long day of climbing steep rocky paths, Ellis reached a lonely village nestled in a mountain hollow. It was quiet there, too quiet, the kind of silence that clings to stone and memory. He walked through the main road. Not a single lantern burned, not a voice to greet him. The homes were shut tight, curtains drawn, doors bolted. Even the animals seemed to hide from view. He placed the candle in the center of the square, lit it with the gentlest breath, and waited. At first, nothing happened. The silence remained. Then, slowly, windows began to open. One by one, cautious eyes peered out. Soft footsteps approached. Children stepped forward first, followed by the elders, then the mothers and fathers, all gathering around the flame. No one spoke, but their eyes told stories. Of fear, of sleepless nights, of memories they wished to forget. And yet, something in the candle's glow softened their faces. Their shoulders lowered, their breath slowed. An old man stepped forward, his hand shaking as he knelt beside the flame. This light, he said. I saw it once, when I was a boy. And I dreamed of it ever since. Ellis nodded. He said nothing. Only placed his hand over the candle and whispered to it, inviting it to show the truth. The flame flickered, then glowed brighter, and in its warmth, the villagers saw not just fire, but images. A memory rose like smoke in the air, showing a young woman barefoot and fearless lighting a similar candle in the center of the same square. Her name was Callan. She had lived there hundreds of years before, had kept the village safe through a great famine. She had walked door to door, offering not food, but hope. And in return, her candle never went out, even in the harshest winds. Even when her own body grew thin and weak, the village remembered her somehow, across time. And the sight of her and the candle's memory made them weep softly, not from sadness, but from the return of something lost. That night, Ellis stayed in the village. He placed the candle in a wooden holder carved by the children and let it burn as they slept peacefully. Without fear for the first time in many years, by morning, the village had changed. Windows were open, songs were being hummed in kitchens. The baker lit his oven again, and a child ran barefoot through the square laughing. The old man handed Ellis a small satchel. Inside it was a smooth stone carved with the symbol of a flame. We don't have much, he said, but this was left by Callan. She said one day someone like her would come, someone who listens to the fire. Ellis bowed gently and tucked the stone beside the candle. It glowed warmly in response. As if it too remembered, he walked on, the mountain path winding upward into clouds. But the candle burned as calmly as ever, its light not just guiding Ellis, but awakening what the world had forgotten. He no longer felt like a boy with a strange burden. He was a keeper, a listener, carrier of dreams, and still there was more to find, more stories to uncover, more light waiting to be kindled. Somewhere ahead, the next whisper of flame waited to join him, and he would be ready, as he always had been. Ellis wandered beyond the peaks, beyond where maps dared to draw lines, and the candle never faltered. Its glow had become a companion, a hum in his chest, a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He began to understand something deeper, that the candle was not magic in the way people imagined. It was memory. It was love. It was the kindness passed from hand to hand, from story to story, never lost, just waiting to be remembered. Each night, as he settled to rest under stars, he lit the candle, and it listened, not with ears. But with its light, it understood silence, it understood tiredness, and it welcomed both. Sometimes Ellis would dream, not of places he'd been, but of people the candle had known. A shepherd who lit it during storms, a mother who placed it by, a window when her child was ill, a girl who carried it through a battlefield just to reach her brother. Their love still lingered in the flame, whispering that light always returns one evening. Ellis reached the edge of a forest that shimmered like a dream. Tall trees swayed in slow rhythm, their leaves silvery in moonlight. The path beneath his feet was soft and moss-covered, quiet, gentle, like a lullaby sung in green in the heart. Of the forest stood a tree unlike any other. Its bark was pale and smooth like old bone, its roots curved like a cradle, and in its hollow center, a small altar lay waiting. Ellis felt the pull again, stronger than before. His breath slowed, his hands trembled, but not from fear, from understanding this was the place where the candle had first been lit. Long before Ellis, long before stories were written, it had waited here through wind and winter. Until someone came who would carry it forward, he knelt before the tree, placed the candle in the center of the altar, and lit it one final time. But something changed. The flame didn't flicker up. It rose, straight and tall, silent and golden, then gently split into hundreds of tiny lights. Like fireflies spilling into the forest, drifting toward distant skies, each spark carried with it a memory, a story, a warmth, and they scattered into the world to find new hearts to rest in. The candle itself remained, a quiet vessel, now at peace, its journey fulfilled. Ellis felt no sorrow, only calm, the kind that fills the lungs like morning air. He leaned against the tree, closed his eyes, and let himself be still. The forest sighed, the leaves danced, and far off in the world, someone lit a lantern, unaware that the light within it glowed just a little warmer than before. The candle had not ended, it had simply shared its flame, so others could carry the rest. And now, dear listener, as you lie quiet in your bed, wrapped in your blankets like soft moss beneath ancient trees, you may feel something gentle, a warmth near your chest, a memory you can't name but feel in your breath, perhaps. One of the candle's tiny flames found you too, and it's there now, glowing, listening, keeping watch. Sleep comes softly, there's no rush, just the hush of leaves and the warmth of stories. The night is kind here, the world is slower, and everything is just as it should be. Let go now, sink into the hush. Let dreams carry you gently, as the candle did. Always warm, always glowing, always there.